Salvete omnes. Hi everybody. In the previous lesson's story we encountered in Olympo, but we know that the home of the gods was called Olympus, right? This O ending is another noun declination called the ablative. The name is not important. What we need to remember is that we use this form when we talk about the location of an action. There are also a few other uses, some of which we'll cover in the next few lessons. Olympus is a regular male noun, just like amicus. So how would we say in the friend? In amico. And try to say God of Olympus. Deus Olympii. I'm sure you've heard this phrase, although probably with a different pronunciation. In vino veritas. In wine there is truth. Can you spot what's missing from this sentence? The word est. But because it's obvious, it isn't needed, and the sentence has a better ring without it. This is technically called ellipsis. Here again with vino, we have the ablative. However, the nominative case for wine is actually vinum. This is our first neuter noun. Neuter in the sense of neither feminine nor masculine. Do you remember what the verb drink is in Latin? Here's how to say I drink wine. Vinum bibo. Neuter nouns are the same whether they're the object or the subject. However, since neuter nouns are inanimate objects, this doesn't get confusing because we know that vinum bibit cannot mean the wine drinks. It has to be referring to an unstated pronoun like he or she. Do you remember what the name Pennsylvania means? This means Penn's woods. So what do you think the following sentence means? Vinum insilva bibis. You drink wine in the forest. It's better to use the word forest since it's singular. Looking at the ending of the word, can you guess how to say the forest is large? Silva magna est. This noun declines just like discipula. If you know the words amble, ambulatory, and perambulate, it will help you remember the next word, in silva ambulo. In silva ambulo. This means I walk in the forest, as in, the forest is the location that I'm walking around in. If we change the declination of silva, we can change the meaning to that of entering, in silvam ambulo. I walk into the forest. Does it make sense? Here the forest is the objective or aim of the movement. So for that reason, we use the accusative form, which we use for the objects. Whereas with the ablative case, in silva, we are referring to the location of the movement. And we actually saw this form in the last lesson's story in the sentence, Jupiter se in taurum transformat. We can see now why this means transforms into a bull and not inside a bull or something like that, because it's the objective of his transformation. In the last story, we also saw the word meaning to live or reside in some place. Id est, to inhabit. Can you remember how to say God lives in Olympus? Deus in Olympo habitat. And now if you know that the verb is ambulare, you can say the god walks into Olympus. But try to make it a female god this time. Dea in Olympum ambulat. Have you heard the phrase ad nauseam, as in he rambled on ad nauseam? Can you see from the second word that this phrase comes from Latin? Ad is another preposition like in, and nausea is declined with an M, just like in silvam. This means literally to the point of seasickness. The root nau refers to the sea, as in nautical. We can use this phrase to remember how to say, you walk to the forest. Try to guess how to say it. Ad silvam ambulas. If something is portable, you can carry it, right? Another word containing this root is transport. Here's how to say, the farmer carries water. Agricola aquam portat. Can you think of how to say, the bull carries the girl? Aurus puellam portat. Remember this sentence because it will appear in this lesson's story. Let's make a longer sentence. You carry the letter to the forest. Epistulam ad siluam portas. And I carry a book and wine into Olympus. Librum et vinum in Olympum porto. Let's pause to review the noun declensions we've covered so far. Puella, puellam, puellae, puella. Gladius, gladium, gladii, gladio. Liber, librum, libri, libro. Vinum, vinum, vini, vino. The first column are nouns of the first declension, and they are all feminine nouns except for a few like agricola and poeta. The other three columns are all second declension nouns, the first being the regular declension for masculine nouns, and the last being the regular declension for neuter nouns. Note though that the declensions are thankfully all the same in these columns, except in the nominative case. And the first declension nouns are not that different from them. All the nouns end in an M in the second row. In the third row, we have the sounds I and E, which sound a little similar. And in the last row, we have long vowels. It's important to really build a strong foundation with these cases so that we don't get bogged down with the rest of the declinations, because there are still 3 more declinations and also plurals. If you're feeling uncertain, it might be good to review the previous lessons. Otherwise, let's break into some plural forms now. In the next sentence, there's a new word and a new verb form. Discipulus et discipula in schola student. Because we are talking about 2 students, the verb changed from studate to student. It's that easy. We just add an N. And you guessed what schola means, right? And you know what declension it is? Say, I walk to school. Ad scholam ambulo. Let's go back to our students now. Discipulae in schola student. Wait, what? We already saw this form and it was used for saying things like the student's book. Well, it's also the plural form. And oddly, the plural form in English adds an S, and the genitive form, as in the student's book, adds an apostrophe S. So we can use this fact to help us remember that these 2 forms are the same. An S sound becomes an I sound in the first declension. Can you think of how to say the farmer's work? Agricolae laborant. Now try to say the female students see the poet's letter. Discipulae epistulam poetae vident. Can you see that this sentence is ambiguous? It could also mean the poets see the female student's letter. With isolated sentences like this, we can only guess the meaning. It is only when we have a larger context that the ambiguity dissolves. To figure out the next sentence, recall that a fugitive is someone that flees. Puellae fugitant. The girls flee. Now try to say the girl flees to the forest. Puella ad siluam fugitat. The next word doesn't have a strong connection to its English meaning, except that they share many letters. The word insula means island. It might help to think that an island is insulated from the rest of the world. Let's say the farmers carry a book to the island. Agricolae librum ad insulam portant. And before we finish the story from the last lesson, let's review one of the words we encountered, since it will also be in today's story. Do you remember how to say watches the earth or looks at the earth? The 2 words had connections to spectator and subterranean. Terram spectat. How would we say, I don't look at the letter? Epistulam non specto. There's just one more word we need to know for this lesson's story. Nunc, which means now. And as a reminder, in the story, Jupiter was trying to woo Europa and changed himself into a bull. Europa taurum spectat, et taurus puellam portat. Nunc puella non est timida. Taurus fugitat, et Europam ad insulam Cretam portat. Deus et puella in insula habitant. The first sentence is pretty straightforward. She looks at the bull, then is carried by the bull, or mounts it. Now she is not timid, but then the bull flees and takes her to Crete. And you see, here we have the form ad insulam, because the bull carries her to the island of Crete. Then in the next sentence we have in insula with the ablative, because the island is the location where they are living. And the story ends with a plural verb, which we'll be dealing with more in the next lesson. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share, and if you can, consider supporting the channel on Patreon. Gracias!